Before we start learning jazz piano, we need to understand the basic building blocks of music. A lot of people try to jump straight into chords and improvisation or even jazz theory, and then they quickly feel lost. So this usually happens because they've skipped the most fundamental idea in music, and that idea is intervals. Intervals are simply the distance between two notes. Once you understand intervals, then suddenly things like scales, chords, and even harmony will all start to make sense. In this lesson, we're going to cover three simple things. Number one, the music alphabet. Number two, what an interval is. And then number three, the most important intervals that we'll use in jazz music. First, let's look at the music alphabet. So in music, we only have 7 letter names: A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And then the alphabet simply repeats again. So after G comes A again. On the piano keyboard, you can see this pattern repeating over and over. So for instance, this is A, and then B, C, D, E, F, G. We start over: A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and on it goes. So every note that you play will always be one of those 7 letters of the alphabet. Now that we understand the alphabet, we can talk about intervals. An interval is simply the distance between two notes. So let me show you an example. If I play C and then D, the distance between those two notes is an interval. If I play C and then E, that is also an interval. If I play C and then G, that is yet another interval. Anytime we play two notes and we measure the distance between them, we are talking about an interval. So intervals are extremely important because all music is built from them. Scales are made from intervals. Chords are made from intervals. Melodies are made from intervals. And even improvisation is really just moving between different intervals. So if you understand intervals well, it becomes much easier to understand how music works. Now let's look at some of the most common intervals that we'll encounter. First, the major second. So if I play C and then D, that right there is called a major second. If I play C followed by E, this is called a major third. If I play C to F, this is called a perfect fourth. And then if I play C to G, this is known as a perfect fifth. If I play C to A, this is known as a major sixth. And then if I play C to B, that's known as a major seventh. And then finally, if I play C to C, that's an octave. Now, what's interesting is we can also go from C to some of these black keys. So, if I go from C to the very next key, well, this key's name is actually C sharp. So if I go from here to there, this is the smallest or the shortest distance between two notes that we can find. I mean, there's no key in between them. So that very small distance is referred to as a half step or a semitone, depending on which part of the world you come from, right? So that's a half step. Okay, in jazz, half step is probably more common, right? Likewise, if I go from this C sharp to D, that's also a half step. If I go from D to D sharp, that's a half step. D sharp to E, that's a half step. Even going from E to F, that is a half step. Okay. Another thing to just take note of is as I go towards the right on my keyboard, I'm going up. And as I go towards the left, I'm going down. So you might hear musicians saying, hang on, just go half a step down. So suppose you're on F sharp, right? And someone says, go half a step down. That means go to your left, to the very, very next key. Okay, so we said that this interval here is known as a semitone or a half step. And then if this is half, that means 2 half steps, which means from here to there and then to there is a whole step. Okay, so from there to there, that's a whole step. If I wanted to play a whole step from this note, for instance, that means I have to go 2 half steps up. So I'll go 1 half step, 2 half steps. That makes this a whole step. So we want to know the intervals of major second, major third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, major sixth, major seventh, but we also want to know our half steps and our whole steps. Okay, and by the way, if I'm using C as my point of reference, remember we said this is a major second, right? If we go down a half step from there, we're now playing an interval known as a minor second. So this right here, yes, it's a half step, but in the key of C, or in reference to the note C, we're actually playing a minor second. So that's a minor second. Okay. And by the way, sometimes intervals are played one note after the other. Sometimes they're played at the same time. Okay, so this is a melodic interval, and then this is a harmonic interval. Major second is a harmonic interval. Here's a major second, melodic interval. Major third is a harmonic interval. Major third is a melodic interval. Right. If I go from that major third and just take it down a half step, that means I'm now playing a minor third. Okay. And then here's a very important one, especially for jazz musicians. This one's known as the tritone. So if I go from C and play, instead of G, if I play that flatted fifth, this interval here is known as a tritone. And as you continue learning about jazz, you're going to hear jazz musicians talking about tritone substitution. They're simply saying, instead of playing that note, play its tritone. Okay, so the tritone is not a perfect fifth, but if you just lower the fifth down a half step, that gives you a tritone. Okay, and then we have 2 more intervals to get through. So from C, if I go to A flat, this interval is referred to as a minor 6, because look, major 6 over there. If I go down a half step, I'm now thinking minor 6. And then finally, we know our major 7th. If I take that major 7th down a half step, I'm now playing an interval known as a minor 7. Okay. So in the next lesson, we're going to start putting these intervals together so that we actually make these things called scales. So I can't wait to see you there. Welcome back. In the last lesson, we were learning about intervals, and we said that that's the distance between notes. Today, we're going to take that knowledge and use it to understand scales. Scales are really the blueprint of music. So they organize intervals into a pattern, and then once you understand scales, you'll see exactly where melodies and even chords come from. So first, let's talk about the major scale. So a major scale is built using a simple pattern of whole steps and half steps. So the formula is whole step, half step, whole step, whole steps, and then half step. So let me show you on the piano with C major. Okay, so if I play C and go up a whole step, that takes me to D, right? From D, if I go up a whole step, that's going to take me to E. So I've already got my whole step, whole step. Now from E, if I go up a half step, that's going to take me to F. And so I've now got my whole step, half step. From F, I'm just going to go whole step, whole step, whole step. So 3 whole steps. And those 3 whole steps are this one here. So that's 1. Then from G to A, that's 2. From A to B, 3. Okay. And then finally, half step. So from B to C, that is my C major scale. So the C major scale is a nice, easy one to see because it's all white keys. Okay. And I'm actually just going to play it here with my left hand. So it goes C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. I'm going to play that again, but I'm going to say the intervals, the whole steps and the half steps. So whole step, half step, whole, half step. Okay. So the beautiful thing about scales is they're actually organized intervals. Okay. I could have done that. In fact, let's do an example starting on G so that we can figure out a G major scale. So here's the note G. If I go up a whole step from G, that takes me to A. Okay, so that's a whole step. If I go up another whole step from A, that takes me to B. If I go up a half step, that takes me to C. And now I need 3 whole steps, right? So whole step from C takes me to D. Whole step from D takes me to E. But now look. So far we've been playing all white keys, right? I need a whole step from E. I can't really play F because that's only a half step. So how do I figure out a whole step? I just go, well, half plus half. That should give me a whole. Right, so F sharp is the note that I would play next. And then after F sharp, I just need a half step and G, right? So if I'm going to play a G major scale, okay. So that's basically the formula for creating any major scale. All right. So you might think, okay, I know C, I know G. Let's try something maybe a little bit more complicated. So let's try B, the B major scale. Okay. So what we need first, well, first of all, there's B. We need a whole step. So a whole step from B is C sharp, right? Whole step from C sharp, 1, 2, okay, that's D sharp. Okay, so now I've got my whole step. Now I need a half step. Half step from D sharp is E, right? So I've done whole step, whole, half. Now I need 3 whole steps. So here they are. There's 1. Remember, that's a whole step from E to F sharp. So there's 1, and then 2, and then 3. Okay, so my 3 whole steps are just black keys. And then after that, I now need half step. And therefore, here's my B major scale. Once you understand the pattern of the major scale, you can now build any scale, any major scale on the piano. The next step from here is once you build the major scales, you now want to practice them so that you develop that muscle memory, but also so that you begin to know what they look like. Okay, so for instance, from the scales that we've done so far, there are some patterns there. The C major scale, it was all white keys. The G major scale was all white keys, except at the end, we played an F sharp. Okay, so it's important to think like this because in real time, you can't be thinking whole, half, whole. Right, you just want to see the pattern of the whole thing. Okay, the B major scale was, other than B and E, the rest of the notes were just black keys. So every scale has got a unique pattern. Okay, and knowing these is going to be extremely important for jazz because scales are basically the foundation for our melodies, for our improvisation, and also for our chords. So what I want you to try is see if you can play a C major scale going up. Now when playing, here's something that's very important. Okay, our fingers have got numbers that we associate them with. Okay, so our thumb is number 1, so there's finger 1, here's 2, middle finger is 3, okay, and then 4, and then 5. A simple finger pattern or a fingering pattern which makes playing scales easy is to go finger 1, 2, 3. So let me do this on I'll do it on a B major scale, right? So we're going to go 1, 2, 2, 3. Once you've played that, your thumb then plays the next note. So I'm going to put my thumb under finger 3, and then after that I'm just going to go, so this is finger 1, right? I'm just going to go 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's the fingering for your scale. I'm going to do the same thing on a C major scale. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and then I'll put my thumb under and play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I'm going to do the same for a G. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And hopefully as you're listening to these scales, you can hear that the sound of each scale is the same. Okay, so the pattern sounds the same. It's just that each one is from a different pitch each time. Okay, so the idea from this lesson is scales are just organized intervals. Okay, and then most importantly, everything in music, whether it's melodies, whether it's chords, whether it's harmonies, everything comes from these patterns. In the next lesson, we're going to look at how to build triads, because these are the chords that are the backbone of every piece of music, particularly in jazz. We need to know these. Okay, so see you in the next lesson. Okay, so now you know your intervals and you know your scales. In this lesson, we're going to learn all about chords. The first and most basic chord is known as a triad. And a triad is basically a 3-note chord. And they're built by just simply stacking every other note of a scale. Okay, so let me show you what I mean using a C major scale. So remember, the C major scale had C, D, E, F, G, A, B. If we stack every other note starting from C, we're going to get C. Well, we skip this one, right? And then we play E. We're going to skip this one and we're going to play G. So this is called a C major triad. And basically the formula for a triad is 1, 3, and 5. Because I'm playing the first note of my scale, the third note of my scale, and the fifth note of my scale. Okay. Now let's see if we can do that for G, since we did the G major scale last time, right? So here's the first note of the G major scale, here's the third note, and here's the fifth. That gives us a G major triad, 1, 3, and 5. Let's go to B. Okay, this is a complex scale, but we can do it anyway, right? So there's the first note of the scale, there's the third, and then there's the fifth. Okay, and that right there is a B major triad. Now let's look at the most important types of triads that we come across in music. Right, so we've already spoken about the major. I'm going to show you based on the note C. So each of these is a formula. So the formula for a major triad is 1, 3, 5. We've already mentioned that. Next, we've got what's known as a minor triad. And the easiest way to find that is to say 1, flat 3, and then 5. By flat, I simply mean move down a half step. Okay, so there's your regular third. You're going to flatten that third, and then you can have your fifth there. Right, so here's a C major triad, 1, 3, 5. C minor triad, 1, flat 3, 5. And then we've also got what's known as an augmented triad. Here's the formula. So we play 1, 3, and then sharp 5. So instead of your regular 5, you sharpen the fifth. Sharp means go up a half step. So there. This right here is an augmented triad. So C major, C minor, and then C augmented. Augment simply also means we've just made the interval slightly bigger. Okay. There's the opposite of that, where we make the interval slightly smaller. So I'm going to do that starting with Let me make that third small, so I'm going to play the flatted third, and then I'm also going to make the fifth smaller. This triad right here is known as a diminished triad. So let's hear what each of these chords sound like, each of these triads. So here's C major, and now here's C minor. I flatten the fifth, right? Here is C augmented. I'm going to sharpen the fifth. Ooh, what a nice sound, right? And finally here is C diminished. So I'm going to flatten the third, I'm going to flatten the fifth. Okay, so those are your 4 basic triads that you're going to come across, and I hope you could hear that each of them has got its own character, its own feeling. So one thing I want you to try, speaking of triads, is I want you to try and play a G major triad. In fact, I'll do this one with you. So G major, if you want to make it minor, simply flatten the third. If you want to make it augmented, you raise the fifth, right? And then if you want to play G diminished, flatten the third and the fifth. Now I want you to try the same thing on an F. See if you can play an F major chord, F minor chord, F augmented, F diminished. And then once you do that, you could even try that on something random. You could try that on B, okay? You could even try that on any note of your choice, right? Just see how quickly you can construct them. And then it's also important to see which chords kind of look the same. Over the years, I've seen a pattern, and I've noticed that if I'm thinking of major chords, for instance, or major triads, there's 12 of them, first of all, right? Why are they 12? Because, well, we've got 12 keys. So if I think from C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's 12 before I go back to C and start over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm back at C. So 12 keys that exist, or 12 notes, right? So that means we've got 12 major triads, 12 minor triads, 12 augmented triads, 12 diminished triads. That sounds like a lot, but actually, if we're thinking of major, there are 3 shapes, okay? This first shape is, I'm just going to call this white, white, white. So a C major triad is white key, white key, white key. The 2 major triads that have exactly the same shape, one of them is F, and the other one's G. So you don't even have to work those out. You can just think of that one shape and then play those 3 chords. I think of that as shape number 1. Shape number 2 comes from a D. So here's a D major triad. It's got a white key, a black key, and a white key. There are 2 chords, 2 other chords that have the same shape, and that is E and A. So A, D, and E have got one shape. So this is shape number 2. So already from these 2 shapes, I know 6 major triads. Well, there's another shape, right? If I think of A flat's over here. The shape is black, white, black. And there are 2 other chords that have the same shape. And one of them is D flat. The other one is E flat. Okay, so these chords have the same shape. So from these 3 shapes, I've already got 9 out of the 12 major triads. So they're very easy to memorize. You just have to practice them. Okay. Actually, one thing you could do to make your life easy is play something like Twist and Shout. If you play it with the C as the first chord, you could actually just play. The 3 chords have the same shape. I could play the same song, but starting on A this time. And if I play A, D, and E, I've got it. I could play the same song starting on A flat. And listen. So 3 shapes, 9 chords, done. And then that only leaves you 3 naughty chords, which are quite simple really, because F sharp is one of them. And it's so easy because look at the shape of F sharp. It's like the New Zealand rugby team. All blacks. And then B is simply white, black, black. Finally, B flat is black, white, white. And there you go, 12 major triads. If you're serious about learning jazz properly, then the next step for you is to join my Jazz Piano Fundamentals course. I will then lead you step by step and guide you until you master these important skills. So I'm going to put a link in the description. Please do check it out, and I guarantee you're going to become a strong jazz musician with a strong foundation to take you from where you are to where you really want to go. So let's do this thing together. Let's grow together.